where Gene Hackman, 95, and his wife Betsy Arakawa, 65, and a dog were found deceased.
It's fair share of tragedies, but few have left as many unanswered questions as the deaths of legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa. Security then checked on the residence and observed Mr. Hackman and Miss Arakawa on the ground, unresponsive. On February 26, 2025, a maintenance worker made a discovery inside the couple's Santa Fe home. Hackman, 95, and Arakawa, 65, were both found dead in separate rooms alongside the lifeless body of one of their beloved dogs. A German Shepherd was also found deceased. Authorities were quick to classify the case as suspicious, though no immediate signs of foul play or external trauma were found. But as forensic pathologists delved deeper into the preliminary autopsy and toxicology results, disturbing details began to emerge. Both individuals tested for carbon monoxide, raising more questions than answers about the final days of one of Hollywood's most revered stars. A tragic scene. What authorities found the discovery inside G. Hackman's Santa Fe home was nothing short of eerie, a scene that left even seasoned investigators unsettled when a maintenance worker entered the house on February 26. He was met with an overwhelming silence. The grand property, once a warm retreat for the Oscar-winning actor and his wife, now held an air of stillness that hinted at something deeply wrong. As the worker ventured further inside, the grim reality of what had transpired became clear. Hackman was found lying on the floor of the mudroom just off the kitchen. His walking cane and sunglasses were nearby, seemingly undisturbed, as if he had placed them down only moments before, perhaps ready to use them. The positioning of his body suggested he had collapsed suddenly, leaving no sign of struggle or attempt to call for help. Investigators noted the absence of any external trauma, no bruises, no cuts, nothing to indicate a violent encounter. This only deepened the mystery as it became clear that whatever had taken Hackman's life had done so swiftly and silently. At 95 years old, Gene Hackman's death did not surprise many. However, it's what comes next that adds a truly disturbing layer to the case. In another part of the house, authorities discovered Hackman's wife Betsy Arakawa's body in a bathroom. She was found near a space heater, her lifeless form resting on the floor. What stood out most to detectives was the presence of an orange prescription bottle on the counter, its cap off with pills scattered nearby. The disarray suggested urgency, perhaps a frantic attempt to retrieve medication. In a moment of crisis, investigators carefully collected the medications found in the home, which included thyroid pills, blood pressure medication, and Tylenol, all of which could play a role in determining what had happened. In those final moments then came another chilling detail: the discovery of one of the couple's German Shepherds dead inside a closet just 10 to 15 feet from Arakawa's body. Like Hackman and his wife, who showed no visible injuries, the dog's cause of death was initially unclear. Some investigators suspected dehydration, given that 9 days had passed since Hackman's pacemaker recorded its last activity, but the fact that the dog was locked inside a closet raised unsettling questions. Had it been placed there intentionally? Was it a panic decision made during a medical emergency, or did its presence suggest something more sinister? Why had the couple's other two dogs survived and this one hadn't? What disturbed authorities most was the isolation of the deaths. There were no signs of forced entry, no indications of struggle, and no immediate explanation for why two people and a pet had died under such unusual Circumstances, the lack of an emergency call added another layer of mystery. Why hadn't help been sought? Had Arakawa been too consumed by shock to react, or had she too succumbed unexpectedly, leaving no chance for outside intervention despite the absence of clear signs of foul play? Investigators classified the case as suspicious, a term that only fueled speculation with no conclusive cause of death and too many unexplained details. The initial autopsy reports are only the beginning of a larger, more complex forensic puzzle, one that is leaving Hollywood and Hackman's fans grappling with the same unsettling question: what really happened inside that house? The pacemaker that held a clue in the absence of any clear external trauma or signs of foul play, one of the most critical pieces of evidence in G. Hackman's death has come from within his own body. His pacemaker, this small device implanted to regulate his heartbeat, ultimately became an unwitting witness to his final moments, while Hackman's home provided little forensic evidence of what exactly happened in those final days. His pacemaker has told a different story, one that only deepened the if his death was immediate, why was no call for help made? Why had his wife, who was found in another room, also perished without seeking assistance? Dr. Michael Bayan, a renowned forensic pathologist, explained that pacemakers record every abnormal fluctuation in heart rhythm, and Hackman's final entry suggested a rapid and fatal cardiac arrest. His heart had likely gone into arrhythmia, a condition where it beats irregularly and then stops suddenly. But while this was the most logical explanation, it didn't account for all the events that happened after the fact. That his body remained undiscovered for over a week hinted at a tragic sequence of events, one in which time itself became a factor in the deaths that followed. The mudrow where Hackman's body was found also raised concerns. Investigators noted that while he had clearly collapsed, the scene around him appeared undisturbed, his cane and sunglasses laying nearby, suggesting he hadn't had time to react before losing consciousness. If he had felt an episode coming on, he may have reached for his cane, but never made it beyond that moment. A medical emergency can leave little room for action, but given Hackman's age and history of heart disease, why had no one been prepared for such an event? The findings from the pacemaker leads some to theorize that Hackman's death was not necessarily instant. If his pacemaker had been struggling to regulate his heartbeat, his body might have endured several minutes of distress before ultimately shutting down. In a solitary moment, he might have tried to call out, only to have his voice go unheard in the vast emptiness of his Santa Fe home. If Arakawa had been elsewhere, she may not have realized what was happening until it was too late. What remained disturbing, however, was that Hackman's pacemaker confirmed his death, yet no emergency response was triggered. Had Arakawa found him and attempted to intervene, had she been unaware for hours or even days before meeting her own fate? The forensic findings were clear in pinpointing Hackman's moment of death, but they left an eerie void in the story, one that could only be filled by a full autopsy report. It also still didn't answer the mystery of Arakawa's death. Either theories surrounding Betsy Arakawa's death, if Gene Hackman's death was a mystery, then the circumstances surrounding Betsy Arakawa's passing only deepened the intrigue, while Hackman's pacemaker provided a definitive clue about when his heart stopped. There was no such forensic marker to indicate the exact moment Arakawa took her final breath. Her body was found in the bathroom, separate from her husband's, lying near a space heater. A prescription pill bottle, its cap removed, had spilled its contents onto The bathroom countertop, the presence of medication, and the positioning of her body led to a troubling question: had she died while trying to save her husband, or had something else happened that medical examiners had yet to uncover? Investigators theorized that Arakawa may have discovered Hackman collapsed in the mudroom and in a state of panic rushed to get his medication. The fact that blood pressure pills were found nearby suggested she may have been searching for something to help him, possibly unaware that his pacemaker had already failed. If she had moved too quickly, lost her balance, and fallen, she could have sustained a fatal internal injury, one that wouldn't necessarily leave visible signs of trauma. Forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Bayan suggested that a sudden fall, especially if she struck her head, could have led to an undetected brain hemorrhage. Without immediate medical attention, she might have succumbed to her injuries hours or even days later. However, another disturbing theory emerged from the forensic reports, one that suggested her death may have been linked to extreme emotional distress. In cases where a person experiences intense grief or panic, the body can react unpredictably. The stress of discovering her husband lifeless on the floor could have triggered a cardiac event of her own, particularly if she hadn't. The home, according to authorities, had no sign of forced entry or foul play yet. Her body, like Hackman's, had gone unnoticed for over a week. The lack of an official autopsy report left speculation swirling. Had she succumbed within minutes of finding her husband? Had she lingered for days alone and without resources, too overwhelmed to seek help? Toxicology reports are still pending, and until the results are released, the precise cause of her death remains unknown. While Hackman's forensic evidence points to cardiac arrest, Arakawa's case was far less clear, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. However, the true cause of death won't be known until the full autopsy report is released. For now, we only have preliminary reports pointing to disturbing details that leave more questions than music answers. The dog's death a clue or a coincidence? The presence of a deceased German shepherd in the home of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa adds another perplexing layer to the already mysterious case. While the preliminary autopsy reports for Hackman and Arakawa indicated no external trauma or carbon monoxide poisoning, the discovery of their dog's lifeless body just 10 to 15 feet from Arakawa raises unsettling questions. Unlike its owners, the dog had not collapsed in an open space but was found locked inside a closet. The circumstances of its death initially led investigators to consider multiple possibilities, including poisoning, dehydration, and even an intentional act. Forensic analysis quickly ruled out carbon monoxide as a factor, as Hackman and Arakawa had tested negative for any toxic gases with the Office of the Medical Investigator, finding no signs of external trauma on either of the deceased individuals. This led authorities to focus on other potential explanations, given that Hackman's pacemaker data indicated he likely died on February 17th and the bodies were only discovered on February 26th. The most logical conclusion was that the dog had been trapped without food or water for 9 days. If the closet door had somehow shut behind it, possibly in the chaos of Arakawa's last moments, the animal could have died from dehydration, a fate that tragically aligned with the timeline of events. However, the fact that the other 2 dogs in the home were found alive complicated this theory. If the deceased dog had been roaming freely at the time of Hackman's collapse, why had it ended up inside a closet while the other dogs survived? Had Arakawa, in a moment of distress confined the animal. Before experiencing her own medical emergency, or had it instinctively sought shelter sensing danger in the home? These questions only add to the growing unease surrounding the forensic findings, reinforcing the notion that the full story of what happened inside the house is still incomplete. Was there foul play? Hollywood reacts to theories. In the wake of Gene Hackman's death, speculation has run rampant, with theories ranging from tragic accident to something far more sinister. The disturbing preliminary reports around the bodies being undiscovered for days and a trapped dog have only added fuel to the fire, while law enforcement officials repeatedly state there were no immediate signs of foul play. The unusual circumstances surrounding Hackman and Arakawa's deaths have left room for unsettling questions. Now, to some, Gene Hackman and his wife are murder victims, he wrote, fueling conspiracy theories that quickly spread across social media. The mere suggestion that Hackman, a man who had spent his final decades in quiet retirement, could have been the target of something sinister, was enough to captivate an audience eager for entry. Authorities, however, have been quick to push back against such speculation. Santa Fe Sheriff Aiden Mendoza maintains that the deaths are still under investigation, but emphasized that the forensic reports had so far indicated no clear evidence of homicide. Deputies arrived and gained access to the residence where they observed Mrs. Arakawa deceased. They continued the search of their home. It's clear to see that a failed pacemaker and triple deaths within the household are all disturbing details that do nothing to quiet an interest, though. While toxicology results remain pending, Mendoza has stressed that Hackman's pacemaker data pointed to a sudden cardiac event, a common cause of death in elderly individuals with a history of heart disease. However, the timeline of Arakawa's death and the presence of scattered medication add complexity to the case, giving rise to theories that perhaps something has gone unnoticed. Even within Hollywood, reactions have been mixed. Many dismiss the idea of foul play as sensationalism, pointing to Hackman's advanced age and declining health. Others, however, found the strange details of the case difficult to ignore. The fact that both Hackman and Arakawa were found separately, along with the puzzling death of their dog, has left lingering doubts. The lack of immediate emergency response, despite Hackman's pacemaker data providing a likely time of death, only fueled uncertainty until the full autopsy and toxicology reports are released. Speculation will continue, while law enforcement insists that no evidence of F-play has emerged. The disturbing details found in Hackman's preliminary forensic reports and the sweep of his home have ensured that his death remains a complete mystery. The toxicology reports the missing piece of the puzzle, with no external trauma, no signs of struggle, and no definitive cause of death from the preliminary autopsy. Toxicology reports have become the crucial missing piece in understanding what really happened to Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa. Investigators are relying on these findings to determine whether undetected substances, medications, or environmental toxins played a role in their deaths. The disturbing details found in Hackman's preliminary forensic reports have already raised questions, but the toxicology results could provide the final answers or create even more mystery. One of the most pressing concerns is the presence of medication at the scene. Authorities recovered multiple prescription bottles from the couple's home, including blood pressure medication, thyroid medication, and Tylenol. The fact that an open prescription bottle with scattered pills was found near Arakawa's body has made toxicology testing even more critical. Had she taken something that contributed to her death? If so, was it intentional or accidental? The forensic team needs to analyze whether Hackman or Arakawa had ingested any substances that could explain their sudden collapses. Hackman's pacemaker records suggest that his death was likely caused by a cardiac event on February 17, which aligned with his known history of heart disease. However, toxicology testing could confirm whether any additional factors played a role. Investigators want to determine if Hackman had any undiagnosed medical conditions or if any substances in his system interacted negatively with his heart condition. Certain medications, when combined, can have dangerous effects on heart rhythm, potentially triggering a fatal arrhythmia. Even over-the-counter drugs can sometimes have unexpected interactions, making the toxicology results essential for confirming Hackman's exact cause of death. Arakawa's case presents an even greater challenge. With no pacemaker or medical device to provide a definitive timeline, forensic experts have to rely on toxicology findings to establish how and when she died. If she had taken medication before collapsing, it could indicate an accidental overdose or an adverse reaction. Alternatively, if no goes on, the desire for clarity grows stronger, but so too does the uncertainty. Hollywood and Hackman's fans alike are left in the dark, mourning the loss of a towering figure while awaiting more definitive answers. Do you think there are more disturbing details to come when the final autopsy report is released? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.